What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to a brand new video. Today we're going to talk about how to gain a high score per minute and also how to hit Marshal, which is the highest possible rank in Delta Force right now. Especially this season, I've been trying to get a really good rank. As you can see, we're in the top 500 here. And I wanted to show you guys really quick some progression I made. So we're on 1,002 score per minute average in the season. And I found some tricks that increased my score per minute a lot. As you can see, season 1 here, we're at 844. We go to season 2/3. It is 1,002 and also an extra kill per minute. So we have made some progression over time, and I quickly want to go in some first basic tips and tricks. This is especially when you're new to the game, of how to gain score per minute and the basics of trying to hit Marshal eventually. And later on in the video, we'll go into the little bit more detailed tips and tricks of this video. So first, how to hit Marshal. It's the highest rank achievable right now. You gain it at a merit of 5,000. You need at least a 750 score per minute or higher, of course, to hit Marshal. If you're gonna have a 750 score per minute on average, you will definitely go into hit Marshal at some point, rather later than sooner, depending on how much time you put into the game. That's very important to know. As long as you have 750 score per minute and you do not leave games, because this is when you're gonna lose merit, you will hit Marshal at some point. It's gonna be slow, but you will get there at some point. So 750 is the key. Now, the next thing is the game mode. So you need to have grade selected. That's important. But then you have different game modes to select from. For example, right now, Blitz is available in the game. You do not gain any merit. You will see that right here. A little warning sign, no merit. But if I select attack and defense, you will gain points. Overall, usually these extra event type of game modes will not gain you merit, which I personally find a little unfortunate. Because it kind of forces the people who try to go for Marshal only to play King of the Hill and attack and defense, but that's the way the game is right now. Sometimes you have a 24/7 playlist of a certain map on attack and defense or King of the Hill. You'll still gain merit on those game modes usually, but always make sure you look for the sign that is right here. If it says no merit, and if it doesn't say it, you should be able to get some extra points. Now, which game mode should you pick? This is a very important one. King of the Hill, definitely by far the easiest way to gain score per minute. In case you're not really good at getting a ton of kills or playing aggressive or having fast decision making. So what I personally recommend is, if you're struggling to get a high score per minute, try King of the Hill first. It's a little bit slower paced, but the trick with King of the Hill is you basically just want to go after vehicles. So you play engineer. You go after vehicles constantly, and you try and cap flags constantly. And you honestly try and go for easy flags. Even like just partially capping flags in this game mode can gain you a lot of points. So try King of the Hill. Personally, I've been playing attack and defense the entire season. Attack and defense, the only problem here is that you also rely a little bit more on your team. So sometimes you just have a really bad team. And if you have a really bad team, it's also just harder to perform a little bit better overall. Because you're basically more on your own rather than having a good team to play with. And in King of the Hill, you can play a little bit more alone and still gain a lot of points. So those are the two decisions that you have to make when you select a game mode. Now we're going into the more important stuff. When you go to loadouts, you will notice that there's 4 classes to pick from. And each classes have their own way of getting points. But what people do not know is that there's a lot of kind of small details on how to even gain more points while playing a certain class. This is very important. A quick example is when you use the recon class and you put down respawn beacons. If a teammate spawns on your respawn beacon, you get some points. But also, if your teammate starts to perform well after that, you will gain some extra points. It will say value respawn on respawn beacons, something like that. I don't know what it exactly is. For the support class, for example, this is if you revive someone. You revive someone, and the player that you revived will start capping a flag, or it will get a kill. You will get some extra bonus points on top of the points you already gained for initially reviving the player. So keep that in mind when you play certain classes. There's a lot of extra ways to gain some points. Let's go over the first class, Assault. This is the hardest way to gain points. You need to know how to play aggressive with Assault, and you need to know how to get kills. You will rarely see an Assault player on top of the scoreboard that doesn't have a lot of kills. For example, sometimes you see a player on top of the scoreboard, not a lot of kills, but it's still on top of the scoreboard. Usually this is a recon engineer or support player because they have a lot of extra ways to gain points rather than just kills. On the Assault class it's a lot harder. You have the magnet bombs, and on D-Wolf you have the triple blaster, which will of course be able to destroy vehicles, but it's a lot harder with these classes. So if you're good at getting kills, try the Assault class. If you're struggling to get a lot of kills but still want to have a high score per minute, you gotta try one of the other classes. So that's the first class, the Assault. We'll go over to Support. Support, personally, I think if you're playing Shafted or Knife Edge or maybe even Trench Lines, it's probably the way to go. Because the Support class will give you a ton of points. When you're playing King of the Hill, do not really use the Support class. You will not really get that many revives on King of the Hill because your team is very spread out. So the Support class is a very attack and defense kind of specific role to be useful at. Of course, if you play a map like Shafted on King of the Hill, the Support class will still work great. What you want to be doing on the Support class is you want to be smoking and reviving. And what I really like to use is the ammo crate. A lot of people really like to use the med crate or the ammo pack instead. But with the ammo crate, you actually gain a lot more points for your team by dropping them in small hallways, or if you know your entire team needs to run through a certain way, drop your ammo crate right there. Everyone has to run through it and you gain some extra bonus points. Now also you want to go for revives. However, what I see a lot of people do is they prioritize revives too much. What you want to be doing is only go for save revives. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to revive someone, the player gets revived and instantly dies again, and you might die as well. So it's usually too risky. Also, the reviving noise is quite loud, so enemies will pick up on that very quickly. So keep that in mind when you're playing as a support class. Revive, but only when you know you can. Do not prioritize. Your prioritization on the support class is more killing and smoking and making sure the team can push rather than just reviving, because it's not the most useful thing to do on the support class. Now, Engineer, and this is probably a gem, especially when you're playing King of the Hill and you play with the launcher. I would just recommend using the AT4 launcher. You can use any launcher if you want to. The Stinger is very specific on maps because the Stinger will lock onto aircrafts in the sky. But the AT4 overall can do everything. I would stay away from the active denial system and the anti-tank mine. What you can do when you play Engineer is even if you hit one shot on any vehicle, you usually gain the same amount of points you would get for getting a kill. If you look at the points, what you get when you shoot a vehicle, usually you will end up with at least 150, and sometimes it's like 250 points for just hitting a shot. This is not even destroying a vehicle. For destroying a vehicle, especially the bigger vehicles, you will gain at least 1,000 points. With smaller vehicles, this will be around 500 to 600. It really depends on the vehicle. But Engineer is probably the best way to gain points when you're playing King of the Hill. When you see a tank, just shoot it. Even if you know you're not going to get the kill, you'll still gain the same amount of points for what you would with normally killing a single player, for example, with another class or with this class as well. So Engineer, focus on vehicles and try King of the Hill. I think some of the top players in this game right now that are in the top 500 probably only play Engineer and probably only play King of the Hill and go after vehicles. One of the most easy way to gain a score per minute, as long as you know what you're doing. Well, the risk is when you go for vehicles is of course that vehicles are very deadly. So you don't want to constantly just hit one shot and then die right after. This will tank your score per minute rather than gaining score per minute. But Engineer, the destruction of vehicles in this game is very rewarding. Now, Recon, as I just explained, the respawn beacon is key. Honestly, if you want to gain score per minute, throw away the sniper and pick one of the SMGs or one of the rifles and play aggressive. because you will gain a lot more points with that. But also, when you're on the flank and you deploy the beacon, squad mates will start spawning on it, and you will start gaining a lot of points for your squad mates spawning on your beacon, and also start becoming a lot more valuable. So again, you will see that on your screen once the squad mate starts to pop off, while after just spawning on you or on your beacon, you will gain a lot of points for that. So the respawn beacon is a key to playing with the recon class. Now, if you want to play Luna or Hacklaw, both have a good way of gaining extra points. With Hacklaw, you have the signal decoder, which basically hacks every player close to you. So if you're an aggressive player, definitely go with Hacklaw. The flash drone also gains you a lot of extra points. Silent step, you know, they cannot hear your footsteps, which is very useful. But the signal decoder is, I think, overall a very easy way to gain extra points, as long as you don't die in these close, aggressive situations. Luna, of course, it has the infamous arrow, I would like to say. Make sure you shoot the arrow up high in the sky and not low. Besides when it's the Volt arrow, of course. You'll gain a lot of points with that by literally just spotting players in front of you. But make sure you use your class to the best way. So right now I wanted to talk about a little bit of extra ways to gain some score per minute. And one thing is, be sure to switch your class to the map. What I see a lot of people do is they just play the same class over and over and over, no matter what map they're playing. You're missing out on points, trust me. So if you try and master all the classes, so from Assault, Support, Engineer, Recon, try and master all the classes, try to figure out how they work, and once you know what to do on each class, you can just start to vary them on the map. So for example, on Ascension, the first two sectors on attack and defense, you want to be going with Support or Assault or Recon. You kind of don't want to be going with the support class, basically. On Ascension, the first two sectors on attack and defense, you kind of want to be going with Engineer, Recon, or Assault. Why? Because it's a lot more open. You need a lot more longer range weapons, basically. But also your team might be a little bit more spread out. So if your team is spread out, your support class might not be as useful as the other classes. So make sure you just master all classes and vary them between the maps you're playing. On Shafted, of course, you want to be playing support. On the trench lines, you can kind of switch between the classes depending on what sector you are. Now another way to gain a lot of points, and that's score streaks. Every time I get that rocket, I just know it can be a guaranteed like 3,000 extra points, which will gain your score per minute a lot. Usually it can bring the difference from going from like an 850 score per minute to well over 1,000 by just one single rocket. What you also can do for one rocket, you can also get the same points for 2 spawn beacons. Those beacons that you can place in are for the entire team. So what you can do is you can try, especially on attack and defense, you can try and flank around, place one of those beacons. You will know that you can get around 2,000 points for just a single beacon placement. That costed, I think, 8,000 initially, so you get like a bonus 2,000 points for basically just placing a beacon at a smart place. Make sure it doesn't get destroyed very quickly, and make sure it's at a place where you know a lot of people would want to spawn in on. You can, in some cases, you can get 2,000 to 3,000 points just for one single beacon. Now, a little tip for the extra score is when you see little gadgets on the ground, try and destroy them. Also, when you're playing support, for example, try and throw those ammo crates down in the hallways. Also, try and constantly heal your teammates, even if they don't need heals. All those little extra points will make a difference from going to like a 650 to 700 score per minute to going to something like 800. Why? Because you're just gaining some extra points. It might not seem like a lot, but it will eventually add up. And I've been trying to focus on that a little bit more since this season where we're in right now. And you will start to notice that your score per minute does actually go up quite a bit. So look for those extra ways to get points. Try and finish the flag if you're on it. Make sure you drop ammo crates in places where you know a lot of teammates are going to be running over. And when you're playing support for a specific, you can just constantly heal your teammates. And if your heal gun runs out, you just continue and doing whatever you were doing. And the last decision, and this might be a little bit of a vague one, but it's an important one to learn. Learn how to make decision in what's gonna give you the most score. Sometimes you're on a flag, and if your entire team is on there, you will notice that capping an entire flag sometimes only gets you like 300 points, while in that same time you could have gotten like 2 kills. Those 2 kills will have given you 400 points. So sometimes it's jumping on the flag that it's like a guaranteed cap, you know, if your team is on there, you see like 20 players on the flag, it's being capped, and you see 2 players in front of you, 2 enemy players, and you're like, hey, I could probably kill these players. Go after the kills, because the flag will be captured, no problem. You can get an extra bonus, 400 points for killing the 2 players. So what I personally like to do is I like to capture flags if there's not too many players on there, and if you have a little bit of a team going on it, because then you'll get the most points out of capturing a flag. It's actually funny in this game, the slower you capture a flag, the more points you will get from it. Because you get capturing points, but you also get points for staying on a flag. Rather, as if it's attacking or defending, you'll get points for it. So make decisions in what you think at that time is going to give you the most score and what's most beneficial for your team in winning or losing the game essentially. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it. This is how I hit 1000 score per minute. Of course, you can check my live streams to see how I'm doing it live. I stream every single day here on YouTube. Hopefully this video was useful. If you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comment section. I'll try and answer them. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.